Peace and blessings, family. A day or so ago, I posted a status asking what's the best relationship advice you ever received. And my answer is a little bit more complex than just a one sentence answer. Um, it was so many good answers up there too. I mean, you can't go wrong with most of the answers that I read on there. But back when I first got married, I was 18. I got married when I was 18, right after graduating high school. And shortly after I got married, me and my wife were into it. We started out real rocky, always into it about petty stuff, and largely because of my immaturity. But I remember getting on the phone and calling my mother, and I was like, hey, I don't think that this marriage thing is going to work out. My wife she just wants too much from me. And she didn't really want too much from me. It's just that I don't think I was ready to compromise or sacrifice the things that she wanted from me. But I was telling my mother that, that she was always going to be, I don't know how we got on this subject, but I was like, you always going to be number one. And, no woman will ever come before my mother. And, I was talking in that direction. And she let me finish. And then, I think when she finally had enough, she said, "No, baby." She said, "You got it wrong." She said, "The Bible says that a man is to leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife." And that blew my mind it blew my mind for a couple different reasons. Because for one, at the time, my mother wasn't very, very high on my wife. They had some little tensions, and it was mostly due to misunderstandings, but she didn't think very highly of my wife at the time. I mean, they're great now. I think my mother actually likes my wife more than she likes me, and I'm okay with that. But um, she said a man is supposed to leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, and it blew my mind because, for one, like I said, she wasn't very high on my wife, but for two, everything around me, so much of the music and so much of the culture around me, and my friends, I mean, we had this culture around us that mom is always king. I remember songs like "I'll Always Love My Mama" and "She's My Favorite Girl," and then Tupac had one, "Dear Mama." There ain't a woman alive that can take my mama's place. That's what Tupac said. And there were several other songs, and that idea was just very prevalent. And so when she said that to me, there was a cognitive dissonance that smacked me in the face, because it so ran counter to the narrative that I had been subscribing to. And so I have to give my mother so much credit for what so many people seem to think so highly of when they see me and my wife together. So many people think that we have this great marriage, and we do. But the point is that marriage wouldn't exist if my mother hadn't given me that advice to leave your mother and father and cleave to your wife. There's no way we would be married, because my wife, my wife is very intolerant of nonsense, and I had a lot of that accompanying me in the early years of our marriage. And my wife knew that I was supposed to leave my mother and cleave to her, but I think I really needed to hear that from nobody other than my mother. And it's not so much that I was a mama's boy. I really didn't have much of a choice. My father died when I was 11 years old, but I've always been very close to my mother. And I think, yeah, I mean, that was huge. Just the fact that she sacrificed her own personal feelings about my wife and about me being married too young, and all these different ideas that she had for my life. She thought I would go on and do some really great things, which I guess on the back end I am doing some great things, but it just wasn't happening the way she had planned, or the way she had seen it or visualized it. And so it was huge of her to compromise or to sacrifice what she was thinking and feeling for the betterment of my marriage. And so man, major props to you, Mama. I mean, that was huge. That was really really big, a big deal, and I owe so much of what I am. People have this idea that that women can't raise men, and ideally, of course, men are supposed to be raised by other men, but there are a lot of men who look to me for advice and come to me for counsel, and my mother was a huge part of the man that I am today. As a matter of fact, probably the three most influential people in my life were women. My grandmother, rest in peace, my mother, and then last but certainly not least, my wife. And most you probably wouldn't know that that I wasn't raised by men if I didn't tell you. And so, and that's, yeah, enough about that. So, that's my input on the best advice I ever received. But as far as I would add to that, that advice is sound, and then I would add to that, seek first to understand, and then last to be understood. That would be my advice to couples today, for as far as marriage or relationship advice, because so everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to be understood, but I think if both people within the relationship practice the idea of approaching conflict with trying to understand the other person, that alone would eliminate most conflict and drastically reduce any future conflict. So that's my 2 cents. That's my word. And remember, at the end of it all you can do is all you can do. And that's enough. Just make sure you do all you can do. Peace.